kindergarten teacher and her boyfriend executed. I have had a particular interest lately in researching multi-victim crime scenes, especially those with romantic partners. Having multiple decedents to find background on adds a dynamic level to the investigation, trying to put pieces together and speculate on which party, if indeed either or even both, led the pair to a tragic end, etc. So this is another case that follows that pattern from Victoria, Yoro, Honduras. This 33-year-old kindergarten teacher, Ingrid, was less than 2 weeks out from getting her bachelor's degree in secondary education, which she had worked hard towards for several years. Her boyfriend, Argenis, was a 28-year-old taxi driver. The pair had been dating for about 4 months. Ingrid called her sister on her break around 10 a.m. and said that she'd be late coming home after work because she was going to ride along while her boyfriend ran some errands in a nearby town. About 2 hours later, local residents called the authorities to report several gunshots in the wooded area nearby. When the police and reporters arrived, both the Ingrid and Argenis were dead by the side of the road. Time of death was presumed to be less than 20 minutes before discovery, which coincides with the locals calling for help. None of the local residents investigated until they heard the police arrive, largely out of fear that the shooters were still lurking in the area. Both victims had their hands tightly bound with zip ties. They were also gagged with cloth strips wrapped around their heads. According to the initial report, Argenis had been shot twice in the head while Ingrid, the teacher, had been strangled to death. The report also said her body exhibited signs of torture. But it was not more specific as to what injuries she had sustained outside of asphyxiation. I cannot see any additional wounds on her body in the photos, but they may be hidden by her clothing or image quality. Sometimes when this terminology is used in such articles, it just refers to the fact that her method of death was considerably slower and more agonizing, terrifying than his likely was. Simply due to the nature of death by strangulation. Police initially speculated that the two may have been killed inside a vehicle and dumped by the roadside. The location and orientation of the bodies would lend some credence to that. Though if that were the case, the executions likely still took place in the immediate area, since residents heard the shots that killed Argenis. The crime was never solved, as the police were confounded. The boyfriend's cab service was known for transporting VIPs, which can mean several different things. But it would not be at all uncommon in the area if his cab were used for observational runs or moving drug gang personnel around the area. It was also reported that he sold second-hand goods and periodically lent money. Both of which could easily put him into the orbit of criminal enterprise. On the other hand, Ingrid had an ex-husband from whom she had only been divorced about 5 months. He was known to be temperamental and likely did not approve of the new cabbie boyfriend. Cops could come up with nothing conclusive on either angle, despite pursuing both lines of inquiry. It was suggested by some reporters that the woman was the main target since she was allegedly tortured and strangled, whereas the man was simply shot in a coup de grâce. Given that her only known background was as a teacher, college student, and housewife. Extra attention placed on her could definitely point to a crime of passion. It is also possible, and has been seen before in many of these cases, that Argenis was the target and the killers tortured and slowly strangled his girlfriend in front of him to try to get him to divulge information, perhaps about one of his clients or stolen goods or drugs. Whether he had the information to divulge or did not, shooting him at the end of the process would not be unexpected. Robbery was not considered to be a motivating factor, as cash, personal effects such as jewelry were still located on the scene. Ingrid's purse contained her ID and cash, etc. Argenis did not have a wallet on him, so it may have been taken, but unlikely for purposes of financial gain.